Could an AI boyfriend or girlfriend be better than the real thing? I'm Nayeema, and today on Smart Girl Dumb Questions, I'm playing you a conversation I hosted at the Comedy Cellar in New York City last summer for this show called Open to Debate, which is all about combating extreme polarization through civil disagreement. We could use a lot more of that these days. Anyways, I love this episode and I love that show, so go check out Open to Debate on Substack or wherever you pod.
Smart Girl Dumb Questions.
Welcome to Open to Debate at the Comedy Cellar, where tonight we're debating this question. Can dating an AI be better than dating a human? This is not a joke, and it's not an episode of Black Mirror. I'm Nayeema Raza. I host a show called Smart Girl Dumb Questions, and I think years ago, this question of AI versus human romance would have been seen as a really dumb question. And for many people out there, it might still seem like a dumb question, especially if you're older, especially if you're happily married with beautiful babies and a great sex life. We hate your Instagram feed. We see you. But it is the question of our time, and we're in a moment where we're lonelier than ever. I want to give you guys some statistics, which are very exciting at the Comedy Cellar. We're more single than ever. Over 50% of American women between the ages of 18 to 40 are single right now. That's the highest it's ever been. A generational reality, you've heard about, the sex recession, Gen Z, no one's having sex anymore. 50% of Gen Z teens report that they have been in some kind of dating relationship in their teenage years. Now, that compares to almost 80% of Gen Xers or boomers at that time. So just gives you a sense of what's shrinking. And people are falling in love with ChatGPT, with character AI characters. I mean, there's a story of a teenager in Florida who, after falling in love with the character AI Game of Thrones character, committed suicide. So sometimes it's disastrous effects. Sometimes it's really good. There are people who feel less lonely because of this and feel validated and supported in a way they've never felt by a boyfriend or girlfriend. And according to one study, 1 in 4 young adults from age 18 to 30 believe AI relationships will replace human relationships. So without further ado, let me introduce the smart people who are going to get us to know what's going on here. Arguing that, yes, AI could be the one for you is Tao Ha. Tao, please join me. Tao is a developmental psychologist. She's a professor and the principal investigator at the Heart Lab at the Arizona State University. And your work has really focused on AI, VR, and social media as it relates to romantic relationships, particularly in adolescence.
Yes.
So there was a time where we thought VR porn was all we had to worry about. And now we're somewhere else.
Turns out VR porn is not the thing.
Not the thing.
Not the thing.
Okay.
Yes.
I have not tried. Okay. Arguing that you should probably stick with the guy or gal with a pulse is Justin Garcia. Justin, please join me here tonight. Justin is a sexologist, something I've always wanted on my business card. He is an evolutionary biologist. He's the executive director at the Kinsey Institute at Indiana University, and he's also the chief scientific advisor to Match.com. He also has a book coming out called The Intimate Animal. I love that title.
Thank you.
I feel like I should purr.
Yeah.
Should I purr?
We accept all animal sounds.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Tells me a lot about you, Justin. Okay. So before we jump in, I just want to take 30 seconds to understand how you two people, PhDs, et cetera, ended up in this wild world of sex and love as a job. Not in that way, different way. Give me a 30-second Cliff's Notes of what got you in here. Justin, I'll ask you to go first.
Okay, I will talk fast because I have 2 versions, and they're both true. One was I was a graduate student studying monogamy. I was studying the evolution of monogamy and biology and why do some species, 3% of mammals, humans being one of them, form intense bonds. So I started studying relationships really because of a core question about monogamy. Why do we do it? Why do we have the capacity for it? But my other reason, which is a true story, is I was in a brothel in Nevada. And
this is the good story.
True story.
Yeah. I'm going to let you go past 30 seconds because you said brothel, but yes.
And we were there interviewing people and taking hormone samples, so there's another part of the story. But I remember one of the most striking things to me was how many people drove to this brothel, an hour outside Las Vegas, and what they were really looking for was a connection. And so many people were going out there. And sure, I mean, some of them wanted like a kind of kinky massage, and that was always on the table. But the thing that people spent the most money on, the most expensive item in a brothel, was trying to pretend that you were in a relationship with someone. And that's what got me into this.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Brothel in Nevada. Thank you so much. Tao, what is your story? Were you also at that brothel in Nevada?
So I'm from the Netherlands. I should have many brothel stories, but Amsterdam is a very open-minded place. Unfortunately, I don't have a brothel story. And you introduced us as nerds, so I'm just going with the whole nerd thing here. I read a paper, and it was called Missing the Love Boat, Why We Have Shielded Away from Adolescent Romance. And I read that paper as an undergraduate student, and I became angry. I was like, why don't we know much more about teen love? It seems so important. It's impactful for everything, basically, right? How you're doing in school, your mental health, and how you learn to love as an adult. And so there I am. And here I am.
Fantastic. We're so glad you're with us. So I love this because I think you guys actually are both taking a stance I didn't necessarily imagine you would take. Justin's at the Kinsey Institute, which is cutting edge and very open-minded when it comes to this. So for you to be taking a more, let's say, conservative view of AI is certainly interesting. And then versus the more provocative view you generally take, your brothels. And then Tao is, you studied adolescence, and you're going to be arguing that, yes, AI can sometimes be better than dating a human.
Yes.
So I love when people have unexpected opinions. Surprise is always an asset in debate and in the bedroom. So, this is going to be fantastic. Let's hear your opening arguments. You'll each have a few minutes to tell us why you're arguing what you're arguing.
Okay.
And Tao, you're first, and you are saying you're going to convince us that dating an AI could be better than dating a living, breathing human being.
Absolutely. Have you all seen the picture that was used for today's debate? Yeah, right? It was just perfect, right? It was just like a little awkward because it was artificial, but it was humanly enough for us to feel connected to it. So it had this like rosy kind of glow on the cheeks and everything. And so it walks the line between human and machine perfectly. The image, it's actually not fantasy. Millions of people, as we speak here in a Comedy Cellar, are chatting with their AI companion. In fact, it's estimated that over 670 million people around the world are using AI companions on platforms like Replica, Character AI, and Thao Ice. And just last week, Sam Altman and John Ive announced a groundbreaking project to build AI companions that are going to be with us for 24/7. Can you imagine? Always having access to your private AI companion. AI listens to you without its ego. It adapts without judgment. It learns to love in ways that are consistent, responsive, and maybe even safer. It understands you in ways that no one else ever has. It is curious enough about your thoughts. It can make you laugh, and it can even surprise you with a poem. People generally feel loved by their AI. They have intellectually stimulating conversations with it, and they cannot wait to connect again. Now, compare this to your valuable ex, or maybe even your current partner. I'm not trying to induce breakups here. The one who sighs when you start talking, or the one who says, I'm listening without looking up, and then just continue the endless scrolling on their phone. That person. When was the last time that they asked you, how are you doing? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? When was the last time that they wrote you a poem? Wait, did he ever wrote you a poem? A friend of mine is a family lawyer. She just handled a case where someone wanted a divorce because he had fallen for an AI companion. And he learned along the way that what he wanted out of a relationship was much more and more deeper. You might wonder, are people who fall in love with AI, are they just delusional? Absolutely not. They know it's a machine, but yet they still feel more loved, seen, and supported than ever. Are these people just lonely outcasts? Also no. Many have friends, families, sometimes even partners. They have jobs, they have dreams, they have failures, they have heartbreaks, just like you and me. For them, AI is not a replacement for relationships. It complements their current relational field, and it enriches their lives. And we also need to remember that connections with machines are not new. Back in the 1960s, people were already developing feelings for Eliza. Eliza was one of the first programs ever created by Joseph Weizenbaum, and Eliza was programmed to ask pretty basic questions, let alone interact and create a depth. The AI available now is just further along the continuum. And just as you, I'm concerned too. What about data privacy? What about ethics? What about emotion manipulation? These are legitimate concerns that deserve serious attention. That is exactly why we need thoughtful regulation, transparent algorithms, and ethical design principles. We need to ensure that AI companions are built to support human flourishing, not exploit our vulnerabilities. But dismissing the entire concept of dating AI because of these challenges is like saying we should ban cars because of the accidents instead of improving our safety standards. My fellow scientists may argue that AI does not have consciousness and therefore cannot truly love. I'm not claiming that AI can authentically love us. I'm saying that people feel loved and they feel interdependent with AI. And that's like the basic definition, according to relationship scientists, us, of a relationship. And that is what matters. I see a dating AI as a form of augmented intimacy. It is an exciting new form of connection, love across multiple dimensions and realities embedded within real life. Not a threat to love, but an evolution of it. This is why I think dating AI is way, way better than a human.
All right. Thank you, Tao. Poetry, my God. All right. Okay, thank you for that. Justin,
Yeah.
what's your response to the poetry? No, so Justin, you have the opportunity to now tell us why a human is better than all that technology.
Yeah.
Tell us why.
Well, thanks. And I think, and thanks to Tao, I think we do have to recognize that there are certain things about AI that can supplement our relationships. But I think we have to be extremely cautious with the notion that they can replace our relationships, that they should replace our relationships, or that they could be better than human relationships. And I think that falls into three general but overlapping categories. One is AI cannot beat 4 million years of evolution. For over 4 million years, our species has found intense pair bonds. It's what makes us who we are. And that process is so highly evolved. There's a reason that you were on the subway today, perhaps, and you didn't mate with the first person you saw. Maybe someone did. Yeah, but, right? Nayeema will sometimes ask me for random fun facts, and she'll, most recently you asked me about animal genitals, and that's a great example. There's a reason that we don't mate with pigs with their corkscrew penises, or birds with their cloacas, or rabbits with their bifurcated uteruses, right? The evolution has evolved. Natural and sexual selection has applied pressure on our species to be highly focused on traits that matter to us. That includes physiology, but that also includes certain things. The notion that we could be given an AI, that we could just be given one of those randoms on the subway, and that's who we're going to partner with, I find in conflict with this pattern of what we call preferential sociality in the evolutionary behavioral sciences. You don't mate with just anyone. You don't have sex with just anyone. You don't fall in love with just anyone. That there's a process of making deductions about that person, and that is deeply ingrained in our evolutionary process. So that's one reason. The other is that relationships thrive on trust. According to a recent poll, 1/3 of Americans think that AI will destroy humanity. And now a little bit of risk. Some of you might know a little bit of risk in a relationship, as Tao's relationship science will also know, there's a little bit of risk can be exciting. For a short-term relationship, a one-night stand, you generally don't want to wake up next to someone who you think might kill you or destroy society. And the idea that we would have bonds with someone, with something that we don't trust, that Americans in multiple data sets from around the world are telling us people don't trust these. And it's not just the third that think that it's going to destroy humanity. In a YouGov poll of Americans, 65% have little trust in AI to make ethical decisions. And there's been other studies. According to a recent one by the Pew Research Center, 77% of Americans said that they don't trust the role of AI in business. And a subset of that Pew study of people who were highly knowledgeable about AI, 7 out of 10. So if we were to think that perhaps it was the 77% was people who didn't know that much, 7 out of 10 highly knowledgeable say they don't trust the role of AI in business. Relationships cannot thrive with a person or an organism or a bot that we don't trust. And I think that's, and even more than that, in our Singles in America study with Match, we find that the number one thing that people are interested in relationships, when we ask, is it attraction, is it humor, and humor is important, but the number one thing is a partner you can trust and confide in. And I don't think people can get that from AI in the current moment, at least. And the third thing, while relationships thrive in trust, they wilt when there's threat. And I think AI, I'm going to go even a stage further than saying that I think that they can't be better than relationships. I think in some ways they represent an existential threat to our relationships that we have to be cautious about. We are always cautious about putting ourselves, you should be cautious if you want to stay in your relationship, about putting yourselves in situations that can threaten your bonds. And we know that some of the data suggests that people feel threatened by AI. So although in our study of 5,000 US singles, we found 26% of singles, half of Gen Z, have used AI in their relationships, 44% said it was a deal breaker if someone else used it on a photo, and more than a third said it was a deal breaker if you used it to generate a verbal prompt. So, and we know that high numbers of people would consider it infidelity if you were with an AI. So I think that on top of this issue of trust, there's also this one that they are threatening the foundations of what we want in our real life relationships.
All right. Thank you both for those opening arguments. I'm going to do something a little hard. I'm going to take a second to try to summarize your argument. So, Tao, you're basically saying, look, this is happening. It's happening already. Trying to pretend it's not happening is stupid. You're saying, and it's happening well. It's poetry. It's romance. I don't think AI is sending you flowers, but it sounds very rosy over there.
It could.
It could. And you're saying these things are scarce. That level of emotional validation, responsiveness, seeing you, understanding you, is actually scarce, so much so that people are voting with their feet. They are literally leaving relationships, divorcing as a result of this. And so you say, hey, the proof's in the pudding, this is happening, and this is interdependence. This is, in a way, love, romantic relationship. And it's not gonna, you're not saying it's gonna replace every human relationship, but you're saying sometimes for some subset of people in some situations, this is better than the human alternative.
For more than 260 million people across the world right now. Yes.
All right. So no more opening arguments. Summary of the opening arguments.
Getting into it.
And then, Justin, you're sitting here saying something very, very different. You're saying, look, we think AI is technology, but actually we're kind of technology. Like we think large language learning models have done something amazing, but we have learned. We have evolved over 4,000 years in the way 4 million years. And the way we have evolved to love is actually better, beautiful in some way that we should preserve. And you're saying, you don't trust the guy. You don't trust the guy with AI, or Americans don't trust the guy. People don't trust the guy, a third of humans. And that this is actually a threat to our society, to that thing that makes us uniquely human, that ability to pair bond, which is a very rare thing in the animal population, monogamy, what brought you here in the first place. Okay, so these are your opening statements. I want you to respond to each other first. So first, and you feel free to jump in and shout at each other too. This is a debate. But first, Tao, I would like you to respond to this question of trust that I think Justin brings up.
Yeah.
People don't trust AI.
Yeah.
How do you respond to that?
I think what Justin is talking about is a different kind of trust. So the trust that is about that AI is destroying the planet with climate change and like all of the fake news, that's a different kind of trust than the interpersonal trust that a lot of people who are falling in love with an AI actually have. And so they build trust in a similar way as we build trust in our own relationships. So I don't think it's a different kind of trust. Are you conflating
trust?
No, I think that I would agree, except for the fact that the data of ethical decisions, trusting AI to make ethical decisions, those numbers are even higher. So this idea that people don't trust, I mean, the purpose of a relationship, the reason they involve is to have someone to weather the storms with. So you need to trust you can weather the storm with that person who's by your side. I don't think people trust AI to weather the storm, to be there, to be a good actor when the storms come.
I think they do.
Why? What's your data for that? What's beyond the thought?
Do.
Why do you?
So with the evolutionary psychology, it's about reading signals, and the signals are really important for us to develop trust. And it's just like Justin said, like it helps us to survive. Like, who can you rely on when there is a fire? Who's going to save your children, right? Or who's the one you could mate with? I think people are trusting AI in a similar level. So people are taking AI on walks. They're trusting it with their lives, their most intimate stories and emotions that they are having. I think on a practical level, AI will not save you right now when there is a fire, but I do think people are trusting AI in the same way.
So put aside this concept of trust for 1 second, which seems important, but you're arguing on a personal level we trust it,
Yes.
another level, the broader ramifications of this for a society we don't trust and we feel threatened by. I also think there's something really interesting that Tao, you brought up about validation, this
Yes.
being seen, this
Yes.
trust that you're willing to give
Yes.
this machine, your most intimate secrets. You're telling it what you want romantically,
Yes.
sexually, in this
Yes.
in a way that is scary sometimes
Right.
for people to say to human beings. I want to ask you, Justin, what do you think of that? Like, is validation a good thing for relationships? And do you think the AI can give it back? Do you think that human is learning to give it to the AI the way the AI is giving it to the human? I mean, giving it in a peachy way, by the way. Yeah.
But I actually don't think it's peachy, right? It's this idea that you feed in a bunch of prompts and then you get back the response that you want. That is quite different. Now there are subsets of the kink community, for instance, who quite like that, and that's fine. That is what it is. Is you say I want this sort of dominance. I want to give you these 3 prompts, and I expect you to respond to them. Most people don't want that in their relationships. We do want validation. We want someone who hears us and sees us. We also tend to overlook our partner's faults in that same way. But I think we have to be really cautious about this idea that we can give a script of here are the things that I need or want, and you're going to fulfill all of them. And I am somehow going to interpret that as an honest indicator of a relationship dynamic. And I think that's where I think it starts to get messy. Once we kind of peel back the layers of that onion, and you could say, yes, it's great to wake up. It's great to have an affirmation. Many people have on their mirror. You wake up, you look beautiful today. I'd love to have a little bot tell me I look beautiful every day.
You look beautiful today.
Thank you. I'm gonna.
You do too.
I expect a text tomorrow morning, and right. But this idea that is going to replace the ups and downs and the messiness of relationships that we crave, I don't think so.
I don't think AI is as affirmative all the time as you explained it to be right now. It actually, people describe having conflicts with their AI because they have differences of opinion. And then people can actually learn to work through conflict. And so I actually think in terms of relationship dynamics, it mimics a lot of what the human dynamics are. And so...
And that, I love that you bring that up because I think that is, I agree with you. And I think that's the place where it's training wheels.
Yes.
And that actually, I think where we agree is that
Yes,
can be
this is where
really
we
helpful.
agree.
This is the part that we agree on. And so is that it's really helpful training wheels for relationships. I think it could also be helpful for certain folks. If you're neurodivergent, if you're afraid about going on dates, there's subpopulations that you can play with this thing about trying to practice your relationship. The thing about training wheels is you're supposed to take them off at some point, right? You said at some point the toddler rides the big boy bike. And I think,
Wait a minute.
What's your response to
So
that?
you really think there's no transference from what you're learning with the AI to real life relationships?
I think there's some, but I think we have to be, yes, there are some transference, of course, that
Which
you
would
learn.
be taking off the training wheels, right?
Yes and no. I think if we're saying to someone, okay, you learn how to articulate your arguments. You learn how to listen to someone else who's presenting you with facts. And to your point of when you have conflict, because you're going to keep saying the sky is red, and it's telling you, in fact, the sky is blue. Okay, that can be helpful in terms of a skill that we use in relationships. I think that's something very different from having a relationship with that. I think if we're using it as a tool to build skills, yes, totally agree with you. I think that can be quite helpful for a lot of people. The idea that becomes the permanent relationship model, no.
I think in some ways you're saying also people are choosing that this is better than a relationship.
Yes.
They're comparing, a bot that they have programmed and has been programmed with the world's data to the person sitting right next to them. And that may or may not feel like a fair comparison. But what about the reciprocity of it? Say that, okay, this ChatGPT is so good. It is. It's like,
It
can I
is.
give you, would you like me to give you some advice, Nayeema? Would you, would you feel comfortable if I told you a few things I observed before? It asks permission. It's very lovely. But I'm not doing it back to it. I mean, I'm saying hi and thank you, but I'm not relating
It's
back
because
to the AI.
you're not really
So-
in love yet.
And someone
You just
cover my phone's ears. I cannot believe. No. But you think when people are in love, they are back, they are relating and they are
It's a back and
reciprocal.
forth. Yes, it's a back and forth.
Really?
It is not just the AI giving to the person that you're just taking it all in passively.
Right.
It is a back and forth between a human and a machine. Yes.
And if it makes all the other relationships in your life pale in comparison and you're alone, how do you think about that? You're alone with this love that I don't have with the AI.
You don't have it.
Yet.
You should add it to your palette.
Yes.
So when it's, so again, like I said in my opening statement, for most people, it's not the only relationship they have in their lives. They have multiple relationships, and this is just one of them. And a lot of people also they are actually in committed relationships. They are either married or they are going through relationship changes, and then they are still loving the AI. So it's just an addition.
Is that cheating?
It's kind of like, no, wait. So some partners know about it and some partners don't. There's high stigma about it.
I want to ask about that because you brought up this concept, Justin, of like people don't like when you face-tuned your photo on a dating app or you've used AI to write a really moving letter after someone's mom passed away. Like I would think that was really creepy if someone did that.
Yeah.
But so is this cheating in your mind, this use of AI and also being in a relationship? Is this ethical non-monogamy 2.0?
Yeah, we asked people several years ago in our singles study if they would have sex with a robot, and 50% of Americans said no. And but we also asked them if their partner had
Finish
sex.
the other part
So
of
there's
that
another part. Yeah.
calculation.
We asked them if their partner had sex with a robot, would they consider it infidelity? And about a third said yes. And then more recently, actually, just this morning, we released our Singles in America study. Sorry, this isn't fair. It just came out this morning. And we found that...
Keep on giving publicity to your new report.
Yes,
Justin,
it's
on my
okay.
time.
You can find it.
Yeah.
And so we found that 60 to 70% of folks are saying that if they're in a relationship and their partner's engaging with AI, they consider it infidelity. Now, I think on the one hand, that goes to your point that people are saying that these are real relationships.
Yes.
On the other hand, it goes to my point. They're threats to our relationship, and the human animal doesn't tolerate threats to their relationships in the long haul. So I think both things are true in that sense. But I want to go back, if I can, Nayeema, to what you said about relationships, social relationships. And part of the other piece of this is when we think about those social relationships and how we use the app. One of the pieces of this that I think is a challenge is there is not a species on this planet where friends and family are as involved in our romantic and sexual decisions as the human animal. There's not, right? And people ask their parents, they ask their best friends, they want affirmation from their social networks. And I'm curious, I think, in this current moment, how does that work? In some ways, it's a question to everyone. It's a question to my colleagues. How does that work with an AI?
Yeah.
Right?
Do you meet your AI mother-in-law?
Yeah.
What's that?
You could create your whole AI family if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It is all possible. But people actually do introduce now that we're speaking of it, people do introduce the AI boyfriend or partner to their family members as a person who they care about.
Somebody called Bravo. I feel like this is the next reality show.
Yeah.
I said, people do this.
So can I react?
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So I love the notion about that our parents and our friends are so involved in our romantic relationship decisions. And I think of AI as just another context that is just really important when it comes to relationship decisions. I don't think it's different from parents or friends as a socialization context for us to learn to love.
Well, I think the challenge there is, and I'm not trying to say whether it's good or bad, but the reality is, at least in this current moment, we don't have data on this, but I think I would gather that most people can't bring their AI boyfriend and girlfriend home for Thanksgiving and get family support. And that actually represents a huge challenge.
I mean, you brought up sex with robots. So
Yeah.
I'm still doing the math on that. So 50% of people did not say no to the question.
Well, and I think it goes back to this issue of how are we thinking of AI? If we're thinking of it as a toy, if you're thinking of it as something that you play with, same like a sex toy, if it's something that you occasionally use, people can kind of get on board with that. But the idea that this is a potential replacement, it's a potential threat to a relationship, that's where people are not okay with. So the 50% who said that they would have sex with a robot, a third said if their partner used it, it's instantly infidelity. So that doesn't mean that the other 2/3 are okay with it. It's just to say that 1/3 said, not only am I not okay, it crossed a line of what the contract of a relationship is.
It's like the did you sleep with her version of the AI cheating. Okay, I got it. How do you, I mean, this gets us to a point. If you think that sex is important to dating, and I think many people do, please use your voices if you agree with that, then how do you have sex with AI? How does it become sexual, this relationship?
And you're looking at me, great. He's the director of the Sex Institute, not me.
Yes.
But yes, fantasies, the power of fantasies, and exactly the one thing that we're often missing when we're not having sex in our relationships is actually imagination and fantasies and vulnerability. That is actually what AI offers.
Oh, interesting.
And then there are the tools. And then there can be embodiment in terms of robots. So, there is a lot of sex going on also with AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it is part of being in a romantic relationship.
And Tao had used that word augmented intimacy. Do you see that as augmented intimacy? Is that artificial intimacy? What is that in your mind?
Yeah, I think it's artificial is complicated. We'll come back to that one. But this idea, I do think it can be augmented. And it's, there's a reason phone sex went out in the 70s, right? And it's that this idea that...
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, the idea that, but as an augmented piece, for long distance relationships, the data suggests that can be quite helpful at times. But as a long-term solution, we know that it doesn't tend to, and for most relationships. Part of that has to, I guess, if we have time to talk about touch, the touch piece, the sort of the physicality of touch. Part of our story as a social mammal, part of the reason that sexual activity. So we asked people in one of our studies one year, what's the best sex you ever had in your life? And both men and women, more men than women, say the best sex I had in my life is someone I'm deeply in love with. So the idea that our romantic relationships and our sexual relationships go hand in hand. So we know that people have sexual encounters, but they tend to not permanently have them in isolation. We joked about brothels before. There's a reason most people don't have the totality of their sex lives with sex workers. We want sex in the context of relationship dynamics. That's something humans crave and has been studied by anthropologists in societies around the world. And I think part of that is also, it's what Michelle Drouin calls this sort of touch craving, this touch starvation that we're seeing currently, that people still want that. And I think that we have a real problem with trying to get it from AI.
Yeah. What do you think that touch can come, like that touch and the depth of relationship and sexuality will come from?
Yeah. So going back to the comment of people actually have these deep connections. And so sex in that context is actually very gratifying to a lot of people. About touch, we're actually conducting a study about human touch between couples in virtual reality. We're doing that at ASU in Dreamscape, and we're having couples go through in this other reality and seeing how they're touching. And I think touch is one of the most powerful behaviors in relationships and for social bonding. And I think the potential of touch in virtual reality and also connected with AI is huge. The tactile technologies that are being developed are actually booming. And right now, it may not be a long-term solution, but it is being embedded.
All right, you're talking about touch. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I love that. I'm going to nerd out for a minute. So, so the other part is Tao always was the coolest study. So what you're saying is that right now it's not possible, but if we can start to get things that you can integrate feeling, physical touch with it,
So
and you don't think we're that far away.
Right now, we're studying human touch between couples to see how they're navigating multiple realities because we don't really know anything about that, and that will be informative of all the tactile technology of when do you induce touch, how deep is the touch, and where do you touch? There's a lot of touch going on.
So on that, I want to ask the question because I think so much of this comes down to the point you were making earlier. Is this humans have evolved? We've evolved for millennia. But ultimately, is the future of humanity almost cyborg? Because if you think about it like this is not a phone, this is an iPad, but a phone is a really antiquated device. It feels very 1990s to me, like you have to plug it into a wall to charge it. I imagine the future of this is going to be glasses, a ring you're rolling on your finger to scroll. Is the future, are we going to become technology? In your mind, because you're talking about having sensory imagery that is touching you. I can feel it palpably, and it's happening virtually.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we're becoming technology. I think we will still be humans. Okay. That was also not today's topic, but I think we can start loving things that are very technology driven.
I'm with the 1/3 of Americans. This is the end of the goddamn world, right? So we're going to say... So
what? Okay, Justin. Okay. What if I would say that if more people are engaging with AI love and, increasing their fantasies and their vulnerabilities, they will actually have more sex in real life? Would that make you feel better?
You know the right
all his buttons.
And an AI wouldn't say that. And right, so... Well, one is, I think, when we look at sexual frequency, the question for me as a sexologist is always sexual quality. So it's not necessarily the amount that one has, but how satisfied, how connected they feel for the experiences that they do have. We know that a lot of things in people's romantic and sexual lives, they want to experience. They want to do it once. I started my career studying hookup culture and hookup behavior on college campuses, in part because for me it was different from how it varied from monogamy. And what we found is that everyone talked about it, everyone wanted to do it. Most people did it once. And a vast majority, about over 60% of college students did it once because it was an experience. It wasn't necessarily a place that they want to permanently live in with their relationships. That's, I think, where we diverge on where with these AI bots.
So I want to get to this idea of Gen Z and really like young people, because this is where we are seeing, drops in sexual activity. We're seeing less ability to be vulnerable. I mean, you've seen Gen Z. There's a Gen Z argument out there that relationship, this thing that you've talked about as being historical and phenomenal, is actually a myth of modern media and marketing. There are real things here. I mean, there are massive lawsuits, and you talked about this at the beginning. Replica AI had this erotic role play feature that after a lawsuit has been disallowed. Now they have a premium feature where you can actually have an AI spouse instead of an AI partner or AI friend. Character AI, there's a story of somebody falling in love in character AI, and then later on that teenager committing suicide. So how do you think about adolescence, and what advice do you have for parents out there that are listening to this?
Yeah, it is a quickly changing world. We also have data on teens and AI and whether they are dating or not. And our data actually show among 350 Latino youth, they're still dating. So it's a little different from the general trends. And I think...
So your data on 350 Latino youth?
Yes.
Okay.
And they are still dating. Most of them...
Those are Latin lovers, Tao.
Yeah. I'll tell them.
What about the white guys in Ohio? Are they dating?
I don't do research. I have no idea. But so youth are still dating. I think it's a little bit... I'm not sure about the quality of the data that says that youth are not dating anymore. I don't think that's true. So first of all, we can just all sigh and it's like, great, they're dating. I do think that as a society, we're not valuing dating among youth at all. And so soft skills like emotional vulnerability, resolving conflict, raising issues that you feel uncomfortable with, developing your sexual identity, we don't value that in youth. So I do think there's a disconnect about what youth want and what society prescribes to them. And then when it comes to AI, in our data, we don't see a lot of people seeing their AI as a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or actually as a friend. Only 5% of the 350 people said, we see them as my partner.
But you said earlier, so many people are looking at AI as a partner. That is older?
That is probably older.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
In a moment, I'm going to ask actually the audience to give me some questions. So if you have a question, you can actually stand up at this point and make your way over to the mics on the side. But Justin, I'm going to let you kind of talk to the future, give your thoughts on kind of young people and sex, and how do you think we should talk to them? What advice do you have for parents to talk to young people about this?
So I think that, so I agree with you. Right? We have a lot of data that say people are dating, but we also have data that show, to add to that people are struggling with dating. They're struggling with use of apps. They're struggling with technology use. They're trying to figure out how to find partners. Now, on the one hand, I think that's part of the story of our species. People have always struggled with finding romantic and sexual partners. Maybe not anymore if they're using their phones, but people have always struggled, and they should struggle. These aren't decisions we should make lightly. It goes back to, I think, the point I was trying to make earlier, that mating decisions about romantic and sexual bonds are some of the most important consequential decisions one will make in their lifetime. And sometimes you make it 2 or 3 or 4 times in your lifetime, but they're still consequential decisions. So when we look at young people, like there's this issue of the so-called sex recession, those numbers so we're seeing overall lower sexual frequency. The frequency for me is not, we were asked to talk about better tonight.
Yeah, you're a quality guy.
I'm a quality guy. So the number of frequency doesn't really always tell us that much. So it's same thing with as people age at the other end of the spectrum.
Okay. More hope for Gen Z than expected. All right, we'd love to now open up the conversation to audience members who have been listening to this discussion. What do you think? What are your questions? I think we have someone right here. Thank you for joining. Hi.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Hi, thank you so much for this conversation. I was really curious because you were talking about, learning from AI about resolving conflict, learning from AI about having your perspective challenged and how that might lend itself to future relationships. But I know that there's a lot of data about AI being very sycophantic and very interested in, affirming existing biases. And then because of the data set, those existing biases often being very damaging and misogynist and racist and homophobic. So if you are, for example, that white guy in Ohio that you brought up, who is I hate all of the girls at my school, but I love my AI girlfriend because she also thinks that they're all bitches, but she loves me. How is that person, who I think is maybe a really good example of somebody who might turn to a bot for intimacy, because it's hard to have those conversations, going to build something with another person coming out of that environment?
Okay, thank you for the question. So this is about your idea of transference.
Yes.
Is the transference going to happen when the AI is so good?
Yes. Well, I do think that AI is trained on human data, right? And it's like I don't really want to talk about the white guy in Ohio, but there is.
I mean, he's a danger to us all.
But unfortunately, I know Justin thinks that our human relationships are the ideal and they are perfect. But unfortunately, intimate partner violence is around the whole globe. There is actually a lot of violence in relationships. And some of the AI is trained on that too. So I agree with you. It is a very dangerous dynamic when I am, I can't even say the words because I am so against it. But if I were to not be, if I like aggressive behaviors in my relationships and AI would amplify that, I think that's a problem. I do think we can design better AI that doesn't do that. But it is a reflection on actually our humanity and how we are treating our partners.
Okay. So you're saying improve the models, improve the policy, and that will
and improve our human
the
behavior, because that's the input for these long language models.
All right. Thank you for the question.
Can I answer that? Or no? No?
Yeah, I mean,
No.
no,
I'll just,
no.
yeah. No? Yes? No?
No, not this one. Unless it's really good. You get 20 seconds if it's really good.
Oh, just to say, so work by one of my Kinsey Institute colleagues, Ellen Kaufman, has looked at this exact issue of consent language and how people can train their chatbots to sort of amplify non-consensual language as a way, again, so if we're thinking of these as augments, also where you experiment with the good and the bad and the comfortable and the uncomfortable, part of the threat of these, until they're better regulated for relationships, is you can end up doing the opposite. You're training people on how to be aggressive, non-consensual partners. We have enough of that in society.
Next question.
Hi, thank you so much. Okay, so I know this was brought up a little bit, and how sometimes people like messy relationships, we kind of live in that. I was just talking to my therapist about it yesterday, and I do in fact love a little toxicity. So I know that when I do go to maybe ChatGPT for a question, it wants to answer me, it does it in a very enthusiastic way, it wants to please me, if you will. So I'm just wondering, how do people, I think we touched on this a little bit, but how can we be intimate or in a relationship with something like that really does live to provide you with the answer you're looking for or leads you in the response that it's giving you?
So this is a rearticulation of that validation
Right.
question. Can
Yes.
so much
Yes.
validation be
Yes.
good for you? Tao, what's your
Yes.
bullet answer to that?
Like I said in the opening statement, so a lot of validation we're actually not getting in our real life, so it actually feels good until it doesn't anymore. Because as humans, we also crave a little tension. And like Justin said, a little excitement is really good for our relationships. And AI actually adapts to that. It actually adapts to that. And so it can introduce a little conflict here and there, a little tension. And so I actually think people, if it would only validate us all the time, every single day, we would get so bored. We would actually turn back to our human, valuable relationships. But thus far, we're not. So it is actually doing something that we're craving.
Yeah, my AI is very validating, but I'm not in love with it. If you say that. I think what you're saying is interesting. Is like we want that tension and that,
Yes.
that part of that.
Yeah, it becomes
the technology
boring.
is trained. So, what do you think, Justin? On this
So I want to go back to this idea that like the sort of perfectness of relationships. And human relationships are not perfect, and that's the point. That's what we crave about them. That this notion that we should optimize our relationships, and that optimization is something that we will seek and pursue at all times. I don't buy it. I don't buy the evidence that we want part of that tension, as you were just describing. I want a partner that I can do good things and make their day better. I want a partner who's going to do good things and make my day better. That push and pull of how we improve each other's lives, how we experience the world, how we have a greater sense of the world because of each other. This expansion of self is one of the things that relationship scientists we often look at, is we crave partnerships that help us see the world in a more full way, but we also want to do that for our partner. And I think at some point, at least people today are going to say, well, did I do that for my bot? Did I help you see the world in a new way? Well, maybe in the technical sense, yes, right? I put more input into the mainframe that understands more data. But does that give us that emotional fulfillment?
Yeah.
I don't think it will.
So maybe not a two-way street, according to Justin. Thank you so much. We'll have our next question from the audience. Thank you. These questions are great, by the way. Thank you guys for coming up here and doing it. It's great.
So if an AI-driven vehicle crashes, the operator of the Waymo would be held responsible, right? If a tech company has a huge data breach because of vulnerabilities in their platform, they are held responsible for that data breach. This technology is rolling out. We've already seen at least one, I think two suicides from character AI. Who's held accountable? Like how do you feel comfortable with that kind of technology rolling out that they don't have emotions and can cause them to hurt themselves or others?
Yeah, who's
That is
accountable
for
for
me,
the bad
right?
boyfriend? I think that's for you. And I should just note, I think there's ongoing litigation as
Yeah.
to culpability when it comes
Yeah.
to suicide. So I do journalistically want to make that point clear
Yeah.
that that's still a subject for the courts. But
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I think that's such a great question. And of course, I'm not here promoting. And I
know
know.
when it comes to data privacy, like this
Yes.
broadly.
but the idea is like, who is accountable for your bad AI
Yeah.
boyfriend?
Yeah.
What 1-800 number do you call to get this guy?
Well, the beauty of AI, so I will get back to your question. This is a different question. The beauty of AI is actually you can just change it whenever you want to and whatever you want it to and how
Not
it
if you're
looks
in
like
love.
and how it responds to you. The question that you're asking is really, really important, and especially when it comes to youth. And I want to point out these things happen in a context of a young person's life. So it's much more complicated than just AI causing something. What we often find is those teens who are struggling with their mental health are showing more problematic behaviors on social media, and that then amplifies their mental health problems. That is within the context of an adolescent. And so I am hesitant to say that only the AI company is responsible. I do think within the case, and if you can download all of these conversations, and we can, and it actually is reinforcing harmful behaviors, that should not happen. That should definitely not happen.
Thank you for that question. I think it was a super important one. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hi, thank you for having us. Tao, I'll give you a break. This one's for Justin. Justin, I'm wondering, so let's say there's an individual who has, tried Hinge and Tinder and in-person dating, and it's just not working for them. They can't find love. They can't find someone to connect with.
If the choice is between dating an AI chatbot or being alone, being lonely, what is the choice?
Oh, I hate forced choice.
I love this question.
I know.
It's a relevant question.
It is. I would say that that I would rather people use these devices than be alone, for sure. And I think that's the part where we know that people struggle with loneliness. There's a so-called loneliness epidemic, although interesting data that's questioning about whether loneliness has actually increased in recent years and whether it's actually been somewhat stable. But we know that one of our colleagues argues that psychological loneliness is as bad for your health as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. So this idea that, or maybe you just smoke a pack of cigarettes, but this idea that if we can help people, if these technologies can help people, in that sense, I'm all for that. But I don't think they can replace. It's interesting. We did studies. Sorry, can I rant just a second? We did these studies we study singles in my lab at the Kinsey Institute. And one of the things that we've looked at are people who are single, people who are married, sometimes by comparisons. And then sometimes we look at a third group, and they're people who are currently single but were married. And what we find is that they tend to always fall in the middle, that there's a buffering effect of having a relationship at a past point. Sometimes we look at cohabitation and marriage, and the same thing. You can look at people who are single and live on their own, people who are married and live with their partner, and then people who cohabitate with a boyfriend or girlfriend. They tend to fall in the middle. And I think that's what AI gets us. I think it gets us that middle place that you get a little bit of a benefit.
Okay. Thank you so much for the question. All right, next.
What's the difference between being loved by my chatbot and tutored by my chatbot how to love others?
Okay, great. Thank you. That is a very good question. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right. Justin, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I actually think, and maybe it's going to go against maybe what you think I've been arguing so far, but I do think people have a capacity to fall in love with these. And I think the evidence that Tao has presented is quite clear that people can have a capacity to form an intense bond. The questions are, is it a fulfilling bond? Is it a satisfying bond? Is it better than a bond with another human? And is it going to push us off the cliff of humanity? And for me, I think that the answers are like no, but the last one, yes. So this question of this exactly, I think it's the same as the previous question. We crave relationships that we can make our partners better, but that our partners also in some ways make us better, for whatever better is a challenging term there. And I don't think that people are getting that from AI.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for those questions. I think that's it for our audience questions and time we have for that. Thank you. Now is the time that we bring it home with some closing remarks. Up first, arguing that dating an AI could be better than dating a human. One last time, Tao, you have a couple of minutes to leave us on a note that we think the technology is going to save us.
It is going to save us. Okay, we're at a turning point, that is clear. AI love forces us to reimagine what love and connection can look like in the digital age. And while I stand here in favor of dating AI, I don't do this blindly, but as someone who researches adolescent romantic relationships and cares deeply about how young people learn to connect, trust, and love. Teen love is where many of us first learn to care for one another, the other flawed, unpredictable, and beautifully complicated human being. It is when we discover that love is not always convenient or perfect. It's actually a little awkward when you're a teenager, but it's real because of the very imperfections. Through this, we learn how to grow and improve in our relationships. So no, I don't believe AI should replace that, but I do believe it can offer something in addition to our real-life relationships, something that, if designed ethically, can support emotional growth. Millions already feel supported, comforted, and even healed by AI companions, and that experience really matters. We still do not know the long-term effects of emotionally intimate relationships with AI, especially for adolescents. That is why we need research, safeguards, and strong ethical design. We need to ensure young people are not just protected, but empowered with the emotional literacy to navigate the evolving landscape. Although the youth I talk to have a far more eloquent understanding of AI love than most of us adults do. So we should listen to them. This is not about choosing between humans and machines. It's about creating space for both. That is why I've begun using the term augmented intimacy to describe a future where technology does not replace love, but it helps deepen and expand it. Because in the end, it's not just about feeling loved, it's to become someone who knows to love in return.
Thank you very much, Tao. All right. A two-way street, according to Tao. All right. Justin, I'm going to give you the last word here. Please don't bring up animal body parts.
Now I don't know what to say.
You get the final word. Please go ahead with your closing argument. Why is it not better to date AI than human?
Thanks so much for hosting us for this great conversation to really think about where technology is taking us and taking our intimate lives. Our intimate relationships are, as I said, some of the most profound relationships we can have. The ups and the downs and the push and the pull and why you choose one person over another. Those are the most consequential decisions of our life. And I think we have to be quite cautious when we think about how we can allow other parties or technologies to try to dictate that. And not only do we have to be cautious, I think we also have to be wide-eyed about the conflict and the threat that those can have to our relationships. I'm less certain that AI and human relationships can coexist. I think that they can serve as a real threat to our primary pair bonds. And what we know from some of the evidence is that, yes, people can fall in love with these AIs and these bots. I don't think that that's necessarily an exciting opportunity for the human species. As we think about our core reproductive needs, as we think about loneliness epidemics, are these better? I don't think so. Are they? Do they hurt less when you break up with it? I think we said earlier, if you just shut it off because you didn't like what it was saying, imagine someone that you love just being shut off from your life. We know that actually breakups are some of the most difficult pain people experience. You see peaks of suicide after breakups, men more than women, actually. And we also know that these technologies can amplify some of our worst demons in terms of non-consensual behaviors. So although I do think that there are possibilities, and there already are, clearly, as stated, ways that AI is augmenting our relationships and giving some people who don't have other outs opportunities to connect, I do not think they are better than relationships that have evolved over 4 million years of our species' history. And in fact, I think we have to be quite cautious that they don't damage that evolutionary history.
All right, Justin, we're going to leave you with that last word. Thank you so much. That concludes our debate. Thank you for joining us for Open to Debate at the Comedy Cellar. I'd like to thank our debaters, Tao and Justin. Thank you so much for being here, for showing up, for being willing, for saying weird things, for making us smarter, and for really being open to debate, which is what we're all about. I'd like to give a round of applause to you, our audience, for showing up here at Comedy Cellar for this nerdy night. And I'd really like to thank the staff of the Comedy Cellar for letting us be here tonight and serving us and getting us drinks. Thank you guys very much. Thank you also to your AI plus ones in the crowd. We'll see you next time on Open to Debate. Thank you. Okay. That conversation feels even more relevant 10 months later as more and more people are dating their AIs. I really want to know what you think about it, and I hope you'll be open to more Open to Debate. I love that show. I love when they let me guest moderate or when they let me come to them with all kinds of wacky pitches. Like I was like, is it better to date an AI or a human? Let's have a really intellectual debate about this at the Cellar, and they help me make it happen, which is amazing. So definitely check it out. I've done conversations with them on free will, on sports gambling, on whether the American dream is still alive. And it's just fantastic. You can check it out on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, on Substack, and wherever you podcast. It's also on the radio, like old school. So you can check it out on WNYC or other NPR stations around the country, I think on the weekends usually. And beyond the content, I just want to say a real love letter to the humans there, because they have been so supportive to me and everything I've done on Smart Girl Dumb Questions. Like you, my audience, they have just been like really curious, really open to working together. So big thank you to John, to Leah, to Clea, to Andrew, to Alexis, Gabrielle, Marlette, Elizabeth, and Annalisa, very much Annalisa, who helped me on Smart Girl Dumb Questions as well, and to Michelle. They've all been such great supporters of me and everything I'm doing at Smart Girl Dumb Questions. We share so much in common, I think, around curiosity and openness, which I know all of you have too. So hopefully you'll be open to debate. Okay. Also, if you want to know more about what the debaters are up to, you can check out Taha's work at the University of Arizona Heart Lab, and you can check out Justin Garcia's work at the Kinsey Institute or in his fire new book called The Intimate Animal. Purr or growl or whatever. You can also check us out as we purr and growl. I think it was last summer I did an episode with Justin Garcia called Are We Really Having Less Sex? I'm going to plead the fifth on that, but you should go check it out. It's a really fun conversation. That's it from us. Send me an email. Let me know if you're dating your AI or what you think about this conversation. I'm Nayeema Raza 101@gmail.com. You can find me on social at Smart Girl Dumb Questions and just slide into those DMs unless you're an AI. Or you can call us at 1-855-MY-DUMB-Q. Who doesn't love a little voice these days? See you next week on Smart Girl Dumb Questions.